Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. My name is Brennan Drum. Did I say Under the Visor OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast? My name is Brennan Drum. I'm here with Parker Thune.
Got to get all the descriptors in there.
Yeah, you got to get all the descriptors in there. Hey, this is a big podcast because one, 4-star running back Tory Blaylock committed to Oklahoma. Number two, scrimmage notes, practice notes. We were at all the practices this week, or at least our team was. Parker and I missed one. I don't know why. I should say why.
Yeah, you know what? Generally, I'd be like, yeah, that's probably something you don't share on the podcast, but you're also you. And you tend to be a lot more transparent about those types of things than many folks.
I'm transparent about everything. I think I'm probably one of my more endearing qualities is that you always know I'm going to tell you the truth. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. So,
well,
endearing, I'm going to tell you what it is.
Exactly the opposite, depending
or the
on
exit. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Anyways, let's just say I can no longer consummate kids as far as, well, I can
procreate is the word you're
procreate. It's oh, the ice and peas have been good, my friends. The ice and peas have been good. All right. Anyway, it's just it's funny, man. Every dude goes through it at some point in time in their life. So,
do they?
I don't know. Maybe. I assume I know a lot of people that do.
Okay. Well, we won't go too deep.
We're digressing already. Gosh dang it! All right.
Tory Blaylock committed. Let's talk about that.
Running back. There you go. Is it Atascocita? Is that how you say it?
Atascocita,
Texas. There you go. His dad, former NFL player. What was his dad's name?
Yeah. So dad's name is Derek. He played
Derek
7
Blaylock.
years in the NFL in the 2000s. Best season he had was with the Kansas City Chiefs in 2004. It was actually, by really anybody's standards, a very productive year, even in those days for a running back. He was sharing the backfield for Kansas City with Priest Holmes and Larry Johnson, still went for 775 scrimmage yards and 9 touchdowns. So he was a guy that had more than a cup of coffee in the league, 5'8", 205 pounds in his heyday. And what's crazy is I didn't know that I'd put 2 and 2 together that Tory had a lot of brothers, but until I did the feature story on him for OUinsider.com members, well, and for the general public, I unlocked it. So if you want the full story of how Tory Blaylock came to fall in love with Oklahoma, as did his entire family, you can head over to OUinsider.com right now, and that's posted up on the front page. But what I didn't realize is that Tory has 4 brothers. Derek had 5 sons. Tory's the middle child. He's the third of the 5. Oldest 2 were defensive backs. The one directly beneath Tory is a defensive back. And then the youngest, he's 10. So the jury's still kind of out on him. But what's crazy is out of Derek's 4 oldest sons, the 4, high school, college age boys of the 5, Tory is the only running back. Every single one of the others has ended up on the defensive side of the ball. But yet it's Tory that has become the most highly recruited of the 4. Mm-hmm. And as of today is obviously an Oklahoma Sooner.
Yeah, that's a big get. Speed. And you want to know what? He's bigger than people.
Oh, he's big.
Yeah. Like a lot of people are like, oh, he's just a speed guy. No, man, that dude, he is a big guy. Like he's going to be a problem.
He's repped the 225-pound bench press 19 times. 19 times. So, strong. Yeah, he packs a punch in that frame. About 6 feet, 5'11", 6 feet, 195 pounds. And I would imagine most saw this on their social media feeds last weekend. But if you didn't, he is a member of that Atascocita relay team that absolutely obliterated the national record. I mean, holy smokes. That record had stood for almost 30 years. It was 39.76.
They obliterated their own record, right? They broke the record, then the very next time broke their own record. Is that not how that worked?
I'm
pretty positive that's how I saw it on Twitter. They broke their own record is what I saw.
So
was that right?
So the record was broken twice in the same meet because Duncanville was the runner-up, and they too
Oh,
broke
okay.
the national record. But get this, like the record that had stood for over a quarter century was 39.76 seconds in the 4x100. Atascocita went 38.92.
Almost a second faster than that is insane.
Uh-huh.
Like
So that's the
what
type of speed you
Blaylock,
get.
what is he in the which anchor is he?
He runs the first leg.
First
And
leg.
solo, if he's just running the traditional 100-meter sprint, he's about a 10.5 guy right now.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, guys get faster as they get deeper into track season. So I would expect that, come end of April, beginning of May, he's probably going to be running in the 10.4s, maybe even down somewhere in the 10.3s.
DeMarco Murray, man. DeMarco Murray. That is one. Hey, I know he is kind of the prodigal son at Oklahoma, and he's the guy that essentially has more say and sway than anybody on a broad range as far as player coach type deal because he's done both and he's done both at an elite level. But he's worth every penny to beat off Ohio State for because not only do you get to keep DeMarco Murray, you have one of the best running back rooms in all of college football this year. And on top of that, he's bringing in the number one running back in the country in 2024 class. And by the time 25 ends, top 2-3 running back in the country when it's all said and done,
In
potentially.
Blaylock?
Yeah, potentially. In
Yeah,
Blaylock,
hard to tell. It'll be highly dependent on senior
top
tape.
5 for sure, though.
He's number 10 at the position right now.
So he probably has a
So
good chance to be top 5, though, you would think.
I would say so. I would say that is
Hmm.
certainly on the table.
Again, but I mean, that's what in a world that you can still return Gavin Sawchuk, Javonte Barnes, Sam Franklin, Taylor Tatum in 2025, and Xavier Robinson. Do you understand how crazy that running back room? That is Alabama-esque. Remember the days when OU would get 2 good running backs and they couldn't get somebody outside of a 3-star to show up? That wasn't too long ago, where they would get 2 4-stars one year and then they could only grab a 3-star. So the next year, now everybody, like, they're just lining up because DeMarco has proved he can develop. Eric Gray, right? Kennedy Brooks, Gavin Sawchuk this year. I mean, it's getting better and better for him each and every. And I believe was he at OU in 2020?
That was his first year.
First year. So he Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, need I say more? I mean, there you go. I always think that he came 2021 for some odd reason, but it was 2020. And so, and Ramondre missed the first, 4 games of the season? Wasn't that right?
Oh, what was that Tech game? I think, yeah, either the 5th or 6th game of the year. So
Yeah, maybe 5th or 6th. But I mean, and he still had an insane senior year to top it off, thanks to DeMarco Murray and his coaching. So his coaching now is starting to line up with his recruiting. And in my opinion, that's where, he and Tony Alford are like duking it out. Who's the best running back coach, right? Like, straight up is what it is. They're both really, really good at their jobs. What do you think this does for the Houston area recruiting? Because it doesn't feel like Oklahoma is going to end up with Landon Rink, right? Like, it feels like A&M is kind of taking the reins there.
oh yes, they've taken the reins.
But okay, they have. It looks like A&M is. I mean, they seem to have bagged Landon Rink.
He's laughing hysterically for those of you that aren't watching the YouTube side.
Because my pun was funny, man. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, see, I didn't catch the pun. I didn't catch the pun. You were Okay.
Bagged Leonard. Oh, I wasn't even thinking what you were probably thinking about. Never mind. All right. We're not going down that route again. I was literally talking about them bagging Landon Rink
Hmm.
because essentially, isn't that what it kind of came down to?
I,
Relationship
I,
wise, Oklahoma kind of
well, I mean, look,
ruled the roost there.
yeah, yeah. Look, you do the math, and you don't have to know the exact details of the situation. Like, I know
Can
how
we
it
can
all
we be
went.
frank? Can we
Well,
be
sure,
frank?
I think we can. Look, I know how
Like
it all
how
went
do you
down. There's some.
honestly, like if it does get to that, I ask a question. Sean Spencer, Todd Bates, and then you look at the production to the NFL. How is that even? And I get it. Location, right? He's from Houston. Totally get it. But parents went to Texas.
Mhm.
Like that to me, I guess you really didn't. Is it choosing the lesser of the two evils? OU, Texas ain't like how is that? How does that work? You, I haven't talked to him as much as you, and the kid is a fantastic kid,
Oh yeah,
phenomenal football player, great family. I'm just intrigued. I will be intrigued to hear his reasoning for that. I
yeah.
guess if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, and again, if you do the math, the kid. I mean, we talked to him a week and a half ago at the Under Armour camp down in Houston, and he's got his 4 official visits set. He ends up going out to USC on an unofficial and sets a 5th official. And then, literally, the next day after he gets back from USC, he's back in College Station. And after being in College Station, he cancels all his OVs and announces an April 3rd commitment date. It's not hard to put 2 and 2 together there.
Mm-hmm.
Not hard. And
I
I will say
mean,
that I had one source tell me Todd Bates was pissed walking into the office on Wednesday morning, I guess it would have been. And understandably so, because
yeah,
boy, Oklahoma would have loved to have Landon Rink.
it's just weird, man. It really is. It's also weird to see, and let me paint this picture for OU fans. For those that are like, how in the world is USC getting all those good defensive linemen?
Oh yeah, what are the
Yeah,
odds that sticks?
Eric, yeah, after the season, probably not very well because I can't
Georgia will
imagine.
win, USC will not.
Yeah, but Eric Henderson is that guy. I mean, he has been the D line coach for Aaron Donald. I mean, for how long? 6, 7 years. Created a monster in him. I mean, he was already a monster. Donald was, but he went to a whole nother stratosphere under Eric Henderson. Eric Henderson was at. He created the defensive line at San Diego for the now LA Chargers. Prior to that, um, he's very highly respected. And so it doesn't shock. I love Coach Henderson. I've known the guy for a decade. I knew him when he was a student assistant at Oklahoma State. So he and I have kept touch, and like I was not shocked to see them just pull something like that off. But at the same time, I just can't. It's like we've all seen the Lincoln Riley where he pulls everything off really early in the recruiting process, and what ends up happening later on down the line, things start to trend in a different direction.
When 4 kids from SEC territory, i.e., Florida and Georgia, take an unofficial visit to USC and suddenly see enough and have experienced enough throughout the whole recruitment process to shut down their recruitment and commit the next day. What do you
Mm-hmm.
chalk that up to? Because once again, like
NIL.
it's it's not hard to follow.
But
It's
once
not
you
hard to
start
follow.
seeing, yeah, but once you, and I agree, but, and then once you see like USC with their roster in the Big Ten and that schedule, what are they, 7-5 again?
Yeah, if they're
8-4 at
lucky.
best, if they're lucky.
And
Those kids aren't going to stick. They're not going
and
to stick.
And what happens if USC gets in a situation like they were in last year where the checks aren't clearing? Not ideal.
Not
But
ideal.
we're getting off track. Tory Blaylock, probably going to be the only running back that Oklahoma takes in the 2025 class. And again, just to kind of riff off your point earlier, Brandon, it says a lot about DeMarco Murray that in like given the context of what he has right now in the Oklahoma backfield, the talent that he has accumulated, he can still bring in a national top 10 guy in Tory Blaylock and have him very excited about being a Sooner. I absolutely stoked. And that, look, it's a credit to DeMarco Murray. But again, I think if you go and you read the feature story that I did on Tory and why he chose Oklahoma, you come to realize that Oklahoma really is doing this thing the right way, man. They really are recruiting the right people, and they're getting dudes committed for the right reasons. Because, man, Derek Blaylock, I'll tell you this much, and he mentioned, he was very candid about this when we talked on the phone the other day. He said, I was sold on Oklahoma the very first time I sat down with Coach Venables.
Yep.
I knew that quickly that Oklahoma was the place for my kid, and that was only confirmed. That notion was only bolstered with every subsequent visit that we took. And it took Tory a little while longer to get there. He said it was his trip to the Iowa State game last fall where he really began to think that, okay, it could be Oklahoma. And where he knew that, okay, it's Oklahoma, was on that January unofficial visit, January 27th, the very night that you and I dropped future casts for Tory Blaylock to Oklahoma. And then it became official about midway through March when we got the Yamaha tweet from DeMarco Murray. So, yeah, a lot to like about this pickup. Commit number 10 in the class for Oklahoma, and one less position you have to worry about because you can check that box and move right along. The Sooners are one secondary commit, which ought to be coming in the next couple of weeks, away from having at least one commit in every single position group in the 2025 class.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Balance.
Which has been the MO for Venables. Common theme with the recruitment with Brent Venables is you're going to have top tier guys across the board, which kind of goes hand in hand with the segue we can go into, which is practice and the team and scrimmage and all the notes that we want to talk about here that we can without really divulging too much to and leave it up to our members. But we got to see the team multiple times this week.
Yep.
And everybody, most of the media, we're all kind of saying this. It's the best looking team we've seen in Norman in a while, like across the board. Now, granted, totally understand the O-line. There's some big questions there. But I just got off the phone with somebody that knows a lot what's going on. And yeah, the D-line dominated the scrimmage today. That tends to be the case early on in most aspects, particularly when you're breaking in a new system. It's the same system, new verbiage, new guys across the board on the offensive line. So the D-line is always going to be better because they return 9 starters.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's number one. 10 if you want to count Justin Harrington coming back finally. So
good point.
I mean, there you go. Or 11 if you want to count Deshaun McCullough and Justin Harrington, because at some point during the year they started as well. So, like, there is a lot of depth. There's a lot of talent on that defensive side of the ball. It's the best defense we've seen in Norman as far as on paper.
And man, I think
this is a long time.
This is really shaping up to be the year where you truly see what Todd Bates and Miguel Chavis are made of. as evaluators and developers of talent, because obviously coming in year one in 2022, they had some natural limitations and disadvantages that were just kind of sewed into the fabric of what they were given. But in 2023, you saw improvement. You saw measurable improvement. The Sooners weren't elite up front. No one would accuse them of such, but you saw improvement. You saw a lot to be hopeful about. Everything that we have seen and heard about this defensive line thus far in the spring of 2024 suggests that the pieces are there such that the Sooners could play elite defense in the trenches in 2024, because they are deep, they are talented, and those youngsters, man, those youngsters are the real deal. David Stone and Jaden Jackson have earned as much buzz, if not more, than any freshman on this roster. And those are exactly the two guys, as we talked about in the last podcast, Brandon. Those are exactly the two freshmen that if you're a Sooner fan, you want to be hearing great things about them in spring practice, because you're going to need those guys this fall. You will need them to make contributions in meaningful situations and prove that against the best of the best in the SEC, they can hold their own. And again, thus far, everything would indicate that they can.
Yeah, they're going to be good, man. I spoke to multiple people today, actually. When I was out watching my kid do some training and stuff like that, and was working the phones and stuff like that, and basically was told those two will be special, downright special when it's all said and done. And it could be as early as August that you see. Yeah, I don't want to overstate this too much, but I think you're going to see a good version of those two in 24, at least at the beginning. And I think by 25, they could be two of the top tandems, defensive tackle tandems, nose tackle, D tackle tandems in all of college football. Like, there is a world where that takes place. If they continue to, granted, don't get the cart before the horses, right? Like, they've got to continue to work and they've got to continue to trend in that direction. But everything that we're hearing is like crazy talk about those two. Like, double teams aren't effing moving Jaden Jackson. Another person told me he is by far the best defensive tackle on this team already. And I've been told that by 2 or 3 different people. Now, and they'll sit there and say, David Stone's not too far behind. And they're talking about interior guys, because the exterior guys, edge guys, there's so much talent there. It's really hard to say this guy is better than this guy and this guy is this guy, because I think Coach Chavis can just say he can throw anybody out there, and I think he's going to get pretty good production in 24 with those guys.
Everybody's had their moments, man, for those edge guys. And even like Nigel Smith was a guy that I frankly thought and still kind of think, okay, long term, maybe you see him on the interior more so than off the edge.
I was told he needs to stay on the edge today, actually. Yeah. He needs to be one of those big edge guys.
Yeah, and the Sooners have a couple of those big edge guys that have really made waves this spring in Ethan Downs and Caden Woolard.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Caden Woolard is, and I spoke to somebody on Twitter actually this morning about him, and this person was very, who questioned, like, do you think he's thinking too much out there right now? Like, is that what you saw? And I was just like, no, I don't think that's the case. And this person kind of felt like he's going to be good, really, really good. It's just a matter of understanding the defense, understanding his keys and assignments. And it's not like he's the starter, right? He's the starter on that left edge. But it's going to, if OU fans just think he's going to come in and just automatically be this 10 sack guy, that's not how it works,
No,
because
there's probably not a 10 sack guy on this roster. And
no.
again,
Well,
that has to do
you
with
think
how deep
before their
they are.
career is over?
Well, no. By
Okay,
the time the
okay.
careers,
Because
yeah.
I will
But
sit here and stand up on this desk right now and say Danny Okoye will have 10 sacks in the season before his career is over at OU.
yeah, but
I will
yeah.
say that.
No, I was talking short term in 2024, just
I
because
got
they
you.
are so deep that I don't think anybody sees enough snaps to get close to 10 sacks.
I but
That's
I
kind of
think
where
he's a yeah, I think he's a 5 sack guy, which I think is a good five,
if you get
six.
5 sacks out of Caden Woolard, that was well worth the 1 year investment that Oklahoma made
Oh,
in that kid.
yeah,
Well worth it. And
he will
also for
be.
him, I think a lot of it is just going to come down to trusting everything that made him successful at Miami of Ohio and coming to terms with the fact that, hey, like maybe the speed is a little bit different at a place like Oklahoma, but all of the things that made him successful as a Red Hawk can make him successful as a Sooner. And just kind of getting it out of his head that, okay, it's a different level. I got to level up. No, you just got to do the things that you were doing, and you just got to continue to do them better and better and better in practice every single day.
That's it. And I think he is. I think he's working towards that. And I think he's going to be, like I said, 5, 6 sacks out of him. He has the ability to be an all SEC guy. No, is that second, third, first, honorable mention? I don't know. But it's worth noting he could be one of those guys that's mentioned in that same breath. And he has that talent. He has that talent. I think that's top end for him. And like you said, that would be a great investment at that point, because you got what you needed out of him. You got somebody that's going to get to the quarterback. He's going to cause problems. He's going to get QB hurries. You're not going to get, as you said, you're not going to get 10 sacks, but what if he has 15 QB hurries and 5 sacks on the season? That would be a huge year for him. That would be huge.
The guy had 58 pressures last year.
And I know that's why
if he has half of that at Oklahoma, holy smokes, that'll be a real productive year. Really productive year. You will take that all day long.
I think the other thing that has really stood out to me was the depth at the cornerback spot, because you have Woody Washington that's been playing corner, nickel, cheetah, safety. Like, he's been all over the field during the spring. So they've been working transfer Des Malone there. They've been working, obviously. The other side is, at some point, is going to be Gentry Williams, right? Like, we all kind of agree with that. But Josiah Wagner, Makari Vickers, and you want to know who has? Did Alabama just beat North Carolina? I just got a text that said that. Don't do that to my bracket's gone now. All right. But the other thing is that
you just gave it up that we're pre-recording this Tory Blaylock commitment podcast. Not that that's a big deal, but yes, Alabama did win, by the way. They won.
Okay. Yep. So anyways, my bad. That totally caught me off guard when I got that text. Anyways, but like I was saying, you got Makari Vickers, Josiah Wagner, young guys. But you want to know who has been talked about a ton is Jacobe Johnson. Like, today, multiple people, you sent me something from your sources. My source said the same thing. I had 2 different sources say the same thing. That kid is finally, it's starting to click. It's starting to click. And when it does finally click completely, he has a chance to be one of the best to ever come through. But you have to accentuate has a chance, because it's not there yet. He's not even completely done. He's still super raw. And I don't even know that he's going to start, play, be in a rotation. Like, those are things he has to accomplish, be in the rotation first before you start talking about that other stuff. And so that's where he's at right now. But he's making plays this spring.
Yeah.
So that's way different than last year.
And I think last year was, it always kind of had to be a real-time learning experience for Jacobe Johnson. And he had to approach it as such. And he did, because he was not ready as a freshman to play cornerback on a regular basis at the Power 5 level. Sure, he was athletic enough that You could throw him out there for a snap every now and again, as Jay Valai and the Sooner staff did at times, and he was going to be able to hold his own, but not a guy that you could trust out there for 40 to 50 snaps a game, just because he was not as natural at that position coming in as he was at wide receiver. And so there was always going to be a little bit of a steeper learning curve for him at cornerback than there would have been at receiver. I kind of favored receiver for him coming out of high school. I know plenty of people did, but obviously the Sooners at this point are more than loaded enough at wide receiver that nobody is looking over their shoulder thinking, boy, what if we had Jacobe Johnson in this group? And because of how athletic he is, because of, the speed and the vertical ability and the physicality and everything that makes a skill position player great or contributes meaningfully in that direction. The ceiling is every bit as high for him as a cornerback as it was at wide receiver. The ultimate question is, can he get to that ceiling, and how long does it take him to get to that ceiling? And so I would expect that in year 2 for him, he starts to see the field more. Is it in a starting role? Probably not. I think it's pretty safe to assume that it's going to be Gentry Williams and either Woody Washington if he's playing cornerback, or Des Malone if Woody's not, that are your starting corners. But kind of like Josiah Wagner last year, I would figure you'll see Jacoby rotating in a good deal here and there at corner, just starting to acclimate a little bit more. And I think the obvious long-term goal is that by 2025, year 3, he's ready to plug and play.
Yeah. Yeah. Back on the offensive side of the ball, I think you look at the running backs, right? And like we said, they're loaded. Gavin Sawchuk, though, he's at 198 right now. By the goal for him is 205, 206, 207 by football season. That way during fall camp, when you lose the water and you lose some of your natural weight just through attrition and lack of being able to work out as much and hold and retain all that due to the heat, and just you're working your body 24/7, right? That way he hovers around 200 for the season. That's kind of the goal for him right now, is to be in that 200, 205 range through the whole year. And so that's the goal they're set out to do with him. And he's on pace. He's on pace to get there. And I would also say that Javonte Barnes he's moving really well, playing, but he's got to get used to the physicality again. And I think that's been kind of the hindrance with him. Protecting the ball this spring has been
ball security.
Yeah, ball security has been up and down with. But I asked somebody about that this evening and was told they're not worried at all that he is going to get that down. That is,
you can fix ball security. You have that guy carry around a football to classes every day for a week.
It has everything to do with him not. I mean, he was out for basically a whole year. He got thrust back in there at Oklahoma State quickly, but then was kind of taken away again. He got thrust in there. What was it? Kansas. He played a few. Yeah. Again, but got pulled back out because he's not used to the physicality. His legs weren't underneath him. He wasn't fully healthy. So it's going to be a progression for him to get back, but they expect him to be Javonte Barnes of freshman year.
You want to talk about a guy that's doing all the right things right now? Caleb Hicks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Caleb Hicks has been good, and it remains to be seen. Like I'm not going to
be able to beat out Javonte.
Well, I'm not going to lay out any sweeping predictions as to how much run Caleb Hicks ends up getting in 2024, because it's very clear that Sawchuk is the top guy, and I would expect the battle for RB2 to carry on well into fall camp, because not only do you have Sam Franklin coming in, and not only do you have Javonte Barnes getting back to full speed, and not only do you have X Robinson already on campus, but hey, Taylor Tatum is showing up in June. Andy Bass is showing up in June too. And
Oh yeah, we didn't even mention him earlier. Holy
both
crap!
those guys will have something to say. And I would hope, for Andy's sake, and I know he's the type of kid that's going to want to, hit the ground running the second he gets to campus. I would hope for his sake that Oklahoma kind of takes the same approach that they did with Eric McCarty. Does that mean Andy redshirts? I don't know, but just being very, very ginger and gradual about easing him back into action, just because he's such a crazy good athlete, man, that the last thing you want is something like what Caden Helms endured, where he gets so close to being back to full speed and then has a setback and then the whole clock restarts, right? So I think, especially with how deep they are at running back, they can afford to play things a little bit slower with Andy Bass. But I've said it so many times, man, and I'll continue to say it. I just get the feeling that Taylor Tatum is going to be a hard guy to keep off the field entirely in year one because he's special.
Yeah. Um. I tied in Bauer Sharp is just he's gonna be good, man. Like really is. Like he's got a chance to be really, really good. And go ahead.
Can I rewind 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Because I'm just now putting this together, but as I was remarking about Taylor Tatum, I was trying to think, who does Taylor Tatum remind me of? And then, having watched him in person on the occasions that I have, I realized, you know what? He's real reminiscent of Kennedy Brooks, not in the sense that he's a plotter, because he's not. Kennedy Brooks was not going to run away from anybody. Taylor Tatum will, but Taylor Tatum, the thing that we always commented about with Kennedy Brooks is that guy could make 8 yards look like 4, like nobody else in the game. And Taylor Tatum kind of has that same quality where he just eats up ground, man. And you
know
look
who
up
else
and
is like that?
who's
Gavin
that?
Sawchuk.
Yeah. But and
Patient.
You watch
patient.
one of his runs, you're like, okay, well, didn't get much there, 2-3 yards, and it's a 7-yard gain, and he has a way of making everything come easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're both, I think that it's almost like DeMarco has a type.
Yeah.
because Gavin Sawchuk's that patient, right? Like he just is so methodical in how he waits for his blocks. But I will say this. What separates those two with Kennedy Brooks is that the second they turn that gear on, night night.
Yep. Yep. Bingo.
You're not catching them. So, yeah, Bauer Sharp tied in. Everybody
be a problem.
Yeah, he's good. And then everybody, Deion Burks. Deion Burks this, Deion Burks that. That dude is crazy good. Deion Burks this. That dude's so fast. Deion Burks is making plays every time they do live team stuff and it's 7-on-7 and shell and all that.
I'm gonna have to start adding an asterisk to the questions I ask any of my sources. I'm gonna have to start being like, hey, outside of Deion Burks, who looked good today?
Yeah. Who stood out? Deion Burks. Okay. Outside of him, Deion Burks. Like it's like, oh,
first guy off the list every time.
So tonight I was told Jalil Farouk is just turned it on. Like he's catching, and I quote, everything. And on top of that, they said his focus is just different. Different. I've had one source said he catches everything. The other one said this dude is just different than he has been in a long time. And I'm wondering, one, he's a senior now, right?
This will be his senior year.
Senior year.
Last go round.
There's a thought. There's a thought, and I've kind of wondered it myself. Was it the game that he had against Arizona? Did that kind of push him into another gear where he's like, okay, that's not happening again, and just became this focused individual where he He's become quite the team leader on top of it too. He's just a different guy. Everybody said that. Everybody, Jalil Farouk is different right now. So he's going to start. So it seems like it's going to be Jaden Gibson right now. But granted, Nick Anderson's out. Nick Anderson will probably be the starter. But so you want to go Nick Anderson / Jaden Gibson, right? Bauer Sharp, Jalil Farouk, Dion Burks. I think that's going to be your skill guys outside of Gavin Salchuk.
With the obvious, caveat that once Andrell Anthony is back to full health, he'll be right there in the thick of that conversation too.
Yeah, but
start
he
it,
keeps having. I mean, if you're on OU Insider, you kind of know that he's had some. He had a hiccup.
He's not progressing the way that many had hoped, but
he had a hiccup. He had to go get some things cleaned up a little bit. So, but anyways,
August is a long way off. He'll be
it's a lot. I don't think anybody's worried about it, to be honest with you. I mean, Tom Brady had to have that done. He got an infection in his knee after ACL and had to have 2 other surgeries, and then he came back and threw for 52 touchdowns or whatever the crap he did that year in 2000.
All right, you heard it here first. 52 touchdowns from Andrell Anthony in 2024, folks.
There it is. There it is. The over exaggerated. That's not what he said, but we're gonna take it and run with it. Safety is kind of a crapshoot right now. People that are wondering, just because, there's just been some nagging things with Peyton Bowen. And it's more day-to-day things right now. Like, he's not like seriously injured, but
if we were still on the old board, OU Fish would have started a thread suggesting that Jalil Farouk moved to safety because he can't hold on to the ball.
I don't even think it's that. I just think he can cover ground, and he'd be a great safety with my evaluation from.
Oh, how I miss OU Fish.
Yeah. Gosh. What was it? And then, as far as safety goes, they go Robert Spears Jennings, and they've been working a lot of people at safety right now. Like, they've had Woody Washington play the other safety. They've had, they will have Justin Harrington at some point playing that. What was the other one? Who else has played there at the other spot? That was it Dolby? Did somebody tell me he played there? Can't be right. Help me out, Parker. I can't remember everybody that's played that. They're rotating a lot of people there.
Hang on. Which spot are you talking about here?
The other safety, strong safety.
Strong safety.
Yeah, so that would be Bowman and Bowen play.
Yes. So Reggie Powers.
Reggie Powers, that's the other one. Yep. Good God, man, I went blank. It was Reggie Powers. There you go. Yeah, everybody loves Reggie Powers, by the way. They think he's going to be really good.
Yeah, he'll be a stud.
He's going to be cheetah. Everybody's like, yeah, he's going to be a cheetah when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and that's one guy that, like, you're hearing really, really strong things about in spring, and you want to believe he makes an impact and a big one as a freshman. Right. But you also have to look at the other side, and the other side is that the Sooners do have a lot of depth in the secondary. And so
one's an All-American, the other one is a top 100 player, and the other one's another top 100 player. You got 2 5-stars and you got Billy Bowman, Peyton Bowen, and then you got RSJ. Like, the odds of you playing are, it's going to be tough.
I'll give you a perfect parallel. Gentry Williams plays a little bit here and there as a freshman and flashes a lot of potential, but sophomore year rolls around, there's much more of a window for him to seize a larger percentage of the snap count, and he is all over it. I can see that happening with Reggie Powers.
I would agree, and I think cheetah may be the spot that he ends up sliding into, because at that point, I think Michael Boganowski will be way more refined as a safety. He even talked to his dad. He's like, he's not refined at backpedaling. He's not refined at that stuff. He didn't ever have to do that, like, he's see ball, go get ball type guy, but he's athletic enough and he's a freak that he's starting to pick those things up, and you hear that like that Boganowski dude is going to be really, really good. Like he's so smart. And then you talk to people around Norman, and they're like, at some point in time, that safety, starting safety in Cheetah is going to be Powers, Hardy, Boganowski, and that is going to be big, long, rangy dudes that are just head hunting, ball hawking fools. They love those three guys, freshmen and uber talented. And then you roll down to linebacker, Parker, before we finish up this team stuff. And it's Danny Stutzman and whoever else they can find around him, because they have 9 or 10 guys that would play at almost any other school in the country because they're so freaking loaded at linebacker. It's going to be interesting to see the combinations they throw out there with Stutzman.
I will say that I want to prepare people for this. And you can remember I said this on March 28th. I want to prepare you all for this.
There's going to be some people leave.
OU is good enough at linebacker that somebody will transfer. I don't know how, it could be post spring, could be after the season, but somebody will transfer by year's end that is a stud. And it will kind of sting you to watch that guy walk out the door. But Oklahoma is just that deep at linebacker that there's not a chance that everybody in that room right now is ever going to make a meaningful dent at Oklahoma. And they're all really talented. They are. And again, there will end up being an odd man out. I don't know who it will be. I don't know how old they are. I don't know any detail, but all I know about that linebacker group right now is that it is deep enough and young enough to where you're going to lose somebody, especially in today's day and age. Like, it'll happen. You will lose somebody good.
Yeah. And you want to know the unfortunate part about this, or excuse me, the fortunate part about this is this rolls all the way back to what we said at the beginning when we started talking about the team. On defense, they're so deep and talented because they've had 4 straight top 10, top 8 recruiting classes and have just loaded it up with really talented guys on defense, that it's just different now. Like this, you look at it and you go and you watch the practices and you're like, that looks nothing like what the predecessor defenses looked like. The corners are all 6 foot and above, or at least 5'11" at the shortest. The safeties are all 5'11", 6 foot. Some of them are 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", big, long, rangy guys. Your linebackers are all 6'3", 6'4", and can run, right? Outside of maybe Lewis Carter, who was just an utter freak. He's like 6'1". And then you look at that defensive line, and you got cats. They had the best defensive line haul in OU history across the board. And that was on top of what they'd already brought in through the transfer and what was already on campus. That, got to give credit where credit's due. Thibodeau left some talented guys on campus for them to add to. So it's just different on defense now. Now, is the expectation that the defense is going to carry you? No. I don't think a defense outside of Michigan and I don't know who else, maybe Georgia, can carry you in today's college football. It's not fathomable. Offenses are too talented and they're too diverse, right? Like, that's not how it works. But I think the defense is going to be good enough to keep you in the game and allow your offense to be able to make plays to win, no matter what game you're in. And I truly believe that, as long as Brent Venables and Zach Alley and the rest of that staff is running that defense. Is that an over exaggeration?
No, I don't think so. And I think that is, again, that's a healthy expectation for Oklahoma in 2024. And you saw it last year, right? The Sooners still demonstrated that they had the offensive punch, if you will, to go and hang a 50 piece on somebody if they were given the margin to do so. And the opposing defense just didn't show up or made mistakes or displayed vulnerabilities, all of the above, right? But by the same token, the Sooners weren't winning shootouts every single weekend. They could go and beat Cincinnati 20-6, right?
Right.
Or even beating Texas 34-30, like by modern standards. That's not a shootout.
It's not 56-48, is it?
And so, yeah, I think the healthy expectation for Oklahoma defensively in 2024 is that, especially as you transition to the SEC and can't really afford to be one-dimensional, that the defense will continue to come along and supplement the offense such that you can win a 20-6 game, or you can win a 34-30 game, and that you hopefully never find yourself in a 49-41 game or a 59-56 game, as we've seen in recent years.
And again, this isn't sunshine pumping, because, well, I'll sit right here and tell you, on that same token, as good as that defensive line has potential of being, the offensive line needs a ton of work.
Yeah.
And it's not so much.
If you are winning 49-41 games in the SEC, that's not a good thing. Like,
no.
Even if you're winning those games long term, that's not a good thing.
No.
That means you have issues.
Yeah. And I don't know that OU's offensive line is going to allow that, where I think that's where the defense and having a good balance is. And I don't want to throw shade at the offensive line, because I think they're going to be decently good when it's all said and done. But right now, there's too much newness, right? Way too much newness on that. And offensive lines are made through adversity, through trial by fire, through cohesion building organically, and through 4 practices and 1 scrimmage and spring ball. That cannot be done with all the newness on there. Like, just not possible. So people need to understand that when we throw this stuff out there and we're like, the defensive line dominated the offensive line in scrimmage 1. Yes, but that is generally the case in all of college football and in all of football. The defense always wins early on this stuff. Now, come spring game, if the offensive line is still a struggle, 10 practices from now, and all that film work and all that other work that they're doing in between then okay, maybe there might be some issues. So you have a yellow flag up, right? The red flag shows up when it's August 20th and you're still hearing the same crap. That's when the red flag shows up, because you've only got 11 more days and 1 week to prepare for your opponent. Now, devil's advocate, throw caveat out there, trying to be Mr. Opposite here and see if I can throw another reason out there. What if the offensive line is struggling so much because the defensive line is so good? There's also that potential. Do I believe that? No. But I could be wrong. So everybody needs to take a deep breath out there. OU's offensive line is going to struggle. That's why they're going to be 8-4, 7-5. As the source told me tonight, in Beatenbow, we trust. He has never steered OU wrong yet in 11 years, and I don't think he's going to start now. So they still have a chance to go grab another portal guy or two after spring. I expect that to happen. And then you see where it goes from there. Right? I think that's your only option at this point. And I've said it, you need more than 6 experienced guys to win in the SEC. So you better go get 7 and 8. And you can have 2 guys that are inexperienced mixed in with that. But you better go get 7 and 8, because, Parker, 4 inexperienced guys in your 2 deep, not a very good recipe for success to start the season. Doesn't mean it won't improve as the season goes, but to start the season, it can be quite rough. You don't want that.
No, you do not.
So, anyways, I think all is going to be well. 9-3, 10-2. That's where I got them right now. All right, that's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. If you're not a member, $9.95 a month. We've got tons of scrimmage notes. Like, we did not even hit on what we've got on OU Insider. Lots of notes. Who did what today or yesterday in the scrimmage? Who did who stood out? Who didn't stand out? Uh, Lots of recruiting notes. Lots of Q&A stuff going on over there. Go subscribe because the official visits, the transfer portal, all of that is about to kick off in a very, very big way for Oklahoma. And if you want to be ahead of the game and know what's going to take place and hear and be the person that knows everything that's going on within the program, whether it's coaching changes, whether it's basketball transfer portal, football, baseball, basketball, softball, like we cover it all for you. And we've got it all over there, ouinsider.com, the VIP, $9.95 a month or $99.95 will get you all the way through a portion of spring football next year. If you sign up right now, we'll get you almost to April of 2025. $99.95 get you all the way through the first season of the SEC for the OU football program. Also, subscribe to this YouTube. Subscribe. We're almost to 14,700. We would love to get to at least by the end of spring 15,000. Trying to get to 15,000 by the end of spring. We need your help. Sign up or not sign up. Just subscribe. Hit the like, subscribe right down here below. Get all the notifications because we drop new videos on all things Oklahoma Sooners, team recruiting, football, basketball, baseball, softball, right here on this channel every day. All right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider and the Visor Sooners podcast. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. You guys have a blessed night.